VSW Tuesday, and welcome to it for this Tuesday, September the 30th, and the big news of the day. Greg's article and piece and interview with Trevor Zegras of the Philadelphia Flyers. But first...
It's funny. It's funny. I literally said to my wife before the Kirill Kaprizov contract was announced, it was a good 3 hours. A good 3 hours of the Zegras story leading the site, people talking about it. And then someone had to go sign the richest contract in NHL history. And there you go.
It was like when... this was a dark tweet. After Ozzy Osbourne passed away, like two days later, Hulk Hogan passed away, and someone tweeted, man, Hogan wouldn't even let Ozzy keep his heat for 2 days.
That's
Kaprizov
right.
couldn't even let Greg Wyshynski keep his heat for 45 minutes or an hour or a couple of hours. And it will dominate the conversation today. It will dominate the conversation today.
You going to let me say my darkest Hulk Hogan joke?
Sure.
It was a picture of his funeral, and someone labeled it the only time Hogan allowed anyone to bury him. Which again, it's just...
That was going to be a kick-out joke or something.
No
kicked out at 3, foot on the rope.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Well, we've hit our wrestling quota for the show, as everyone's come to understand.
Now we'll get right to the puck talk. Thank you very much. And as Mike Russo reports, with the Kaprizov deal, the structure is interesting. 20% of the $95.5 million cap in salary signing bonuses, 19.1 in his first 4 years. Like, it's a special contract here. And there's a lot to get to. But first, before we start diving into what this means for Connor and Jack and Kyle and Martin and great day for the Minnesota Wild. And congratulations to the Minnesota Wild. Hart Levine from PuckPedia is going to stop by a little bit later on. We're hoping to have someone else join us here that Zach is trying to coordinate as we speak. But in the meantime, before we get into the Pacifics, as we say in the Atlantic about this deal, congratulations to the Minnesota Wild. They got their guy. It's a little bit more sugar in the coffee that I'm sure Bill Guerin wanted to splash around. But nonetheless, the Minnesota Wild got Kirill Kaprizov locked up for the next 8 years, to which Greg Wyshynski says what?
I mean, there are different kinds of wins. I think this is a huge win for Bill Guerin. He landed the plane. Any general manager that's in this level of contentious negotiation that can land the plane, it's good. I was talking to you before the show. I am stunned, shocked, flabbergasted.
Okay,
that Kaprizov wanted to stay in Minnesota for 8 years. I really thought when he rejected the first contract offer that it wasn't about the money, but it was about him wanting to remain in Minnesota. We talked about it last week with Mike Russo, the let's call them nefarious overtures made by other National Hockey League teams with regard to
we're
plans
just
for
talking. This is like Glengarry Glen Ross. We talking about this, or we talking about this? So what are we doing? We're just talking. We're just talking.
He may not have known where the grass was greener, but he sure as shit knew the grass was growing other places. And I'm a little surprised he decided to commit to Minnesota, to be honest with you. But the part of the win, you just declared it win for Minnesota. The part of the win that really... Well, let me ask you this, because this is also the caveat I'd give to Guerin and the caveat I'd give to the Minnesota victory, which is that they clearly were negotiating against themselves. I don't think anybody goes this high with Kaprizov on the open market. I think that this contract, as I was texting with an agent before the show, because, I'm a big deal. I think this contract is commensurate to the idea that it's not a destination market, and that the way that the Wild are built does not guarantee that he's going to win a Stanley Cup in the next several seasons. I mean, they've got some great pieces. They're maybe on their way. Obviously, him being there is a foundational reason why they could maybe win a cup one day. But they've never done it in franchise history. And there are other teams built stronger in the West at the moment. And so the commitment to the team, the commitment to the market, they had to go well above their already record offer, Marek, to sign this guy.
Yep.
And one of the things that they always said was, we don't want to go negotiate against ourselves. The only other team involved in this negotiation was the Minnesota Wild. They completely negotiated against themselves.
But what was the option? Like, this is what I come back to. Like, this was, as far as agenting, This was a brilliant performance by Paul Theophanous, who recognized in this situation, this is the first year that the Minnesota Wild get out of cap prison. And if your first move when you finally get out of cap prison is to lose the best player your franchise, with all due respect, Marian Gaborik, the best player your franchise ever had, that's a bad look for the organization. And he recognized that, and that was a leverage point. Like, there's a lot of leverage points that Kirill Kaprizov had here. This is going to be a tough one for Guerin from the beginning. And how many times have we said, like, it's the old Jarmo Kekalainen saying, sometimes the team has the hammer, sometimes the player has the hammer. When the team has the hammer, they have the right to use it. And when the player has the hammer, the player has the right to use it. And in this situation, much like with Connor McDavid, much like with Jack Eichel, etc., the player has the hammer here. And clearly he used it, and we should not fault them whatsoever for doing a couple of things here. Re-signing in Minnesota, and B, resetting the marketplace. To, as what one agent referred to me, because I'm a big deal too, I talked to a couple agents before the trade, said, this is a resetting of the marketplace. And what did we talk about last week? Nobody wanted to go first. No one wanted to be the first one in this pool. Well, now Kirill Kaprizov has done it, specifically in those first 4 years, as Russo points out. But he has effectively reset the marketplace here. And now everything that happens afterwards is a reflection of this contract. So this contract isn't just a Minnesota contract. This is a Winnipeg contract. This is an Edmonton contract. This is a Vegas contract. This is a Colorado contract. And it might just be a contract that gets some players traded. These are all the things that we're going to talk about on the program today.
Yeah, we are on the Kaprizov thing. Like, the other thing about it too, and I there's no way to predict this stuff. I don't want to have a sassy Jack Hughes coming after me about talking about the potential health of players in future situations. But you have committed this money, and you have committed this years to someone who has played 80 games once in his career. That's a fact. Now, when he plays, he's incredible. When he plays, he's one of the maybe a generational goal scorer in this league. Let's be honest. I mean, with the amount of talent that he has and the way that he shoots the puck. But, that's part of it too, is you're investing this amount of money in a guy that might not always be there based on his previous 5 seasons in the league.
The other thing that I think we need to factor into, and I hope it doesn't discourage other owners from speaking this way or being as candid and open as Craig Leipold was last year, when he said, look, no one can offer him more than we can, and I'm paraphrasing here, and we're prepared to do so. Don't forget here, too, part of the motivation, like all these things that Theophanous sort of gathers together, you have the owner saying, no one's going higher than us. No one's offering more. Okay, let's test that. Like all those things. Like, this is why attorneys don't want clients talking outside of the courtroom. This is why it's just like, it's always a good time to shut up. Because all these things, Paul Theophanous, the agent here, brought to the dance. And it all worked in his client's favor. So congratulations. And in the process, as I mentioned, reset the marketplace.
Yeah. Again, I can't say this is a loss for the Wild or a loss for Guerin. I mean, they've managed to retain, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, as we saw during the summer, the talent was retained because the cap is going up. They've managed to retain one of the best offensive players in the league, and a guy that would have lit it up in several different markets had he been able to escape. And you are now the Kirill Kaprizov team. And again, if you want to take the optimistic view, I think they're a few pieces away from being in actual cup contention. Yeah. But it's not like they don't have some good young defensemen. It's not like they don't have some decent forwards. There's something there, and you just hope that the open checkbook that allowed you to give Kirill Kaprizov the richest contract in NHL history until Connor McDavid signs is in fact also open to improve the team around him.
Yeah. The other part of this too is, and again, this was another pressure point. If you don't sign Kirill Kaprizov, how much of a step backwards are the Minnesota Wild taking here? And this is a team that, I mean, how long did we say? I know I keep coming back to Suter and Parise. Like, get the handcuffs off, and all of a sudden we'll see, finally Bill Guerin can chew on some real cap space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot to get to here on this program about this contract. And as I mentioned, Hart Levine from PuckPedia, the conceptual genius of PuckPedia, as we like to call him, will join us coming up just after the bottom of the hour break. In the meantime, here's what's coming up on the program today. Daily Outline powered by FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. And as I mentioned, Hart Levine will be dropping by in a couple of moments. We'll talk more about Kirill Kaprizov and the setting of the bar, the new high watermark in the NHL. We'll see how long this one lasts. We will talk about your piece with Trevor Zegras. And it's funny. When I woke up this morning, I said, because I'm curious, like, okay, Greg's on. What are we going to talk about today? And I go, we got to park some time talking about another Matthew Schaefer back check, which all seems so small right now. And I know it was against Matt Rempe, but if this is this guy's calling card, who is that guy? Who is that? Was it Beat the Freeze in baseball? Like, Matthew Schaefer on the back check is going to be like Beat the Freeze. Was that his name? Beat the Freeze in baseball. I didn't even know which team did it, but there was one guy in an intermission feature who would give people like a head start, and he'd be all dressed up like a spaceman, and he would catch people who had this insane head start running around the outfield wall. Was it Beat the Freeze? Anyway, that's what these Matthew Schaefer back checks are. Now, really quickly.
The Atlanta Braves.
Oh, was it Atlanta Braves? There we go. It was the Atlanta Braves that did Beat the Freeze.
Thanks for chiming in, Zach, because I was really worried the mushrooms were kicking in.
You never saw Beat the Freeze?
I probably did. I just didn't recall it. Keep in mind,
Everybody.
you're also the person who made a Max Headroom reference before we hopped on the air. So I mean, you're on a different wavelength than most.
You referenced your headroom in the camera shot, so you can just tate-twa about that one.
I understand.
But those Schaefer back checks, I know it was against Rempe, and I know it was against Beachkoff, and I know neither of those two guys are the fastest in the NHL, but it's still fun to see nonetheless. Did
I see a video last night of the Islanders trying to hold up Rempe so he couldn't absolutely pancake Schaefer when he had the puck? I think I saw a clip of that as well. Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. Okay, so as we continue on with the topic of the day, and that is a Kirill Kaprizov record-setting contract with the Minnesota Wild. What's the next domino to fall here? And what does it mean given there is a new reality and a new standard set here? There's a new bar set in the NHL. Is it the obvious? Well, now all eyes are going to be on Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. What is Connor going to do? Is it Jack Eichel? Is it Kyle Connor? Is it Martin Richest? Like, who's next for you, Wish?
Well, the one I'm most interested in now is Kyle Connor. The other two, McDavid's going to sign for whatever McDavid asks for, and his re-signing in Edmonton, I don't think is commiserate with any dominoes falling behind him. Okay, it's commiserate on thinking he can actually win there beyond this season. So we all know that. In Jack Eichel's case, the sense I get is that it's less about the money than it is about the term. How long do they want to commit to Jack Eichel in Vegas? And also, ultimately, you can never really tell when you're dealing with Vegas what their plans ultimately could be. Like, what are they keeping their powder dry for down there? One never knows. So Kyle Connor's the one I'm most interested in because he's a winger who scores goals, and a winger who scores goals just signed the richest contract in NHL history. Mm-hmm. And if we're doing winners and losers, Marek, I'm not quite sure how anyone can't view Kevin Cheveldayoff as a gigantic loser today, based on how much Kyle Connor's price tag just increased.
Yeah. One other thing that I want to throw on one other log I want to throw on the fire here of this conversation. Speaking with one agent this morning, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what does this translate this contract from Minnesota to Florida? And it sounds like if this were the Florida equivalent, it would be just over $14 million. And how different a conversation are we having right now about Jack and Connor and Kyle and Martin and all that if the contract that he signs wasn't in Minnesota but was in Florida and it was $14 million? Because that is the commensurate the commensurate price for this player if he wasn't in Minnesota or this. I think only California and New York, I mean, you're an American, you can tell me otherwise, are the two states that have higher tax rates than Minnesota.
Look, man, all I know is a bacon, egg, and cheese sets me back like $7 now, which is tough to deal with. But,
what kind of God would allow that?
the screaming about the Floridian teams getting Kirill Kaprizov would overshadow any math being done on the deal. Like, that's obviously what would have been the bigger story here. But again, you got to pay the guy to retain the guy. This is just like well beyond where I ever thought they'd end up with him. Is the honest answer.
Okay. Canadian-based program. How does this affect Connor McDavid? How does this affect the Oilers?
I don't think it does. I think he's going to have to decide how long he wants to commit in Edmonton and at what price he wants it. And the other thing about it too, Marek, is that we've heard from people that if he does re-up for another, say, like 3 years, and again, 3 years gives him this year, 3 more, it puts him on the same contract trajectory as his good friend Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and also Evan Bouchard with the Oilers. So if you're looking for the window to win, that might be the window to win. We've heard that he might not take this kind of money to stay in Edmonton because he wants the Oilers to have the flexibility to do other things. Based on what you just saw Kaprizov sign, do you still believe that to be true?
Geez, I keep going back and forth on this one. And the Oilers have been consistent, and most recently and most publicly, Jeff Jackson, who said, like, look, it's not really a negotiation. Connor McDavid has a place in hockey where he's going to say what he wants, and we're going to say okay. Like, that's the way this one is going to go. So this is now more attention on, okay, Connor McDavid, what do you want? Like, once upon a time, like we talked a couple of weeks ago at the passing of Bob Goodenow, and in that era, there was no way, no chance that Connor McDavid was going to sign for less than Kirill Kaprizov. Not a chance. Stanley Cup final twice, Conn Smythe Trophy, Hart Trophy, like Art Ross, like on and all, multiple All-Star, like Hall of Fame position is already secured, like all of it. There's no way he's coming in lighter. But the feeling that everybody has about Connor McDavid and the drive to win and the Stanley Cup and get the name scratched and all these types of things for Connor is that, to your point, the money isn't as important as the winning. But if the winning was the only thing that was important, he would come in at a ridiculously low number, and I don't think Connor McDavid wants to do that. And again, like this is why I keep saying to myself, this is one of the most incredibly sensitive needles that Connor McDavid is trying to thread here between like, how many times have you heard an athlete say something along the lines of this? It's not about money, it's about respect, and the way that I judge respect is money. So at the end of it, it's always about money, but still, like, Connor has like this internal, this internal tug and this internal push and pull that's going on with him. I want to win, but I also want to take care of myself and do what's right in a lower case here, in a minor key for what's right for the Players Association. Now that Kaprizov has set a new bar.
Well, I was going to say, like, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Others will take care of that for you. I just think he's painted himself into a corner, to be honest with you, rhetorically. If you decide to stay in Edmonton, you're deciding to stay in Edmonton to allow them to try to win a cup with you there. The only way that they're going to win a cup with you there is to get better. The only way they can get better is to have open cap space. The only way they're going to have open cap space is if you don't take a $17 million AAV. So I actually think McDavid's kind of put himself in a situation where if he does get $1 more than Kaprizov against the cap, we'll all believe he's worth it, but it may not necessarily serve the purpose that he has stated he wants to stay at Edmonton for, which is to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I get that. But then on the other hand, I always go back to, what the player is thinking here. And again, I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder how much internally, or maybe like in conversations with Stan Bowman, Connor and his representation at Wasserman, Judd Moldaver, are saying like, look, why should my guy pay the costs for mistakes the last general manager made? How come my guys got to pay for it here? Because we haven't been able to put a team around him. Why does my guy have to suffer here? Like once upon a time, that was the conversation. No, I know that. Sure. I know that, but like once upon a time, like that was the conversation. And I don't know if that's still going through the mind of someone like Connor McDavid. Like, I'm sure at various points, and this goes true for every player. Like, there's a lot of players on teams that are, like, I think about the Buffalo Sabres, and I really think about Tage Thompson all the time, what's going through his mind and how much longer he wants it to keep doing this if this continues. But if you're Connor McDavid, at a certain point, you have to say, how come I'm always the one that has to be more understanding about the team? I did that once for Leon. How come I'm being asked to do it again now?
You crammed a burrito full of nonsense. Listen, there's no comparison between Connor McDavid and Tage Thompson, because Tage Thompson can't make the playoffs and Connor McDavid's been to the Stanley Cup final twice. So although that roster may have financial mistakes, it's still one that got him within a few wins of the Stanley Cup. Second of all, Stan Bowman's a GM now. And while, obviously the team has its financial mistakes in the past, you can easily say those weren't mine. I mean, he's got different mistakes in the past, Marek, but not the ones on the Oilers.
But what I'm saying is, like, there's a history of squandered opportunities here for the Edmonton Oilers, and then now that they're right there and ready to make, and we assume ready to take that next step. And if you're Judd Mulder, they're like, why does my guy have to make the sacrifice?
What does Stan have to do? Give him reparations because Ken Holland mismanaged the cap? It's he's in there because they needed a change. And he can easily just make the argument, give me 3 years. I'm not going to make the same mistakes of the past. Hey, by the way, here's 3 Stanley Cup rings that tell you that I won't. And the reason that Connor McDavid has to take less is not because, he's the one who always is sacrificing for the sins of the past. It's because he's one of the highest paid players in the sport. And if you're one of the highest paid players in the sport and you're at the top of the salary ladder, then you're the one who has to decide whether or not you're going to take less to help out the rest of the team. It's something that Crosby had to do. It's something that others had to do. It's something that Kane and Taves decided not to do. And it's something that obviously Matthews and Marner decided not to do. Yeah. And so that's when you're the best and you want to win, sometimes you can't also be paid like the best and still win. That's just your lot in life in a salary cap league. So obviously, Marek, the ultimate answer is stop being a bunch of wimps and fight for a luxury tax so you wouldn't even have to have these conversations about the cap.
That will never happen. The other thing that I've been going back to 0405, just as a quick aside about, the luxury tax fight, that won't happen, as never will my idea happen. This goes back to 2005, and that is cap cash. Hey, we at trade deadline, we find ourselves with $5 million worth of cap space that we're not going to use. Why can't I trade that for a draft pick or a player? That will never happen either. Even though all the money is still accounted for, and I understand that salary caps are magnets and you're using up all your cap space and you're treating it like a commodity, but players did sign off on linkage.
That's also the other thing too with Minnesota we didn't talk about. Obviously nobody on that roster is Kaprizov, but now the ceiling is quite high now that Faber's looking at. The ceiling is quite high now that Bouillam's going to be looking at, and anybody else they bring in. That's also part of the salary cap math as well with Krill.
Vegas with Jack Eichel on this one. I want a couple more moments here. We're going to pick up the conversation with Hart Levine from PuckPedia in a second, but the other big one here is Jack Eichel. And I don't know if there's still any residue from the draft and those comparisons, and they played in different conferences for a long enough time. But I wonder if it's important for Connor to make more money than Jack Eichel. Like, I'm wondering about part of this too is, and you know how players are competitive like this. First of all, are you surprised that Kirill Kaprizov went first?
No. Look at the money he just got from Minnesota.
Oh, I get it. I get.
They were desperate. Like the Jets aren't going to be the first because they're not going to want to set the market with Kyle Connor. They want, and Kyle Connor. I should rephrase that. Kyle Connor wants the market set before he goes back to the Jets. That's pretty obvious. McDavid, as I said, I don't think he's part of this conversation. He's in a different stratosphere. Eichel, that's one I didn't think was going to happen before Kaprizov, just because I think there's more at play there than simply we want to retain the player. I think that the Wild made absolutely no bones about wanting to keep Krill. And I'm not entirely convinced that Vegas wants to keep Eichel, but I don't think they have the same level of enthusiasm as the Wild did. Does that make sense?
No, because I agree with that. Although I do think that when you look down the middle of the Vegas Golden Knights,
Mm-hmm.
Jack Eichel is clearly number one. And then you have William. Is this the year they trade him Carlson? And then you have Tomas, keep the hospital bracelet off, Hurdle. Do we sort of undervalue how important Jack Eichel is to this entire organization, this entire operation? Because he's the center you can't afford to lose.
If there's a 1% chance that the Vegas Golden Knights could end up with Connor McDavid next summer, how do you commit $15 million and a no move clause to Eichel?
Because it is a risk that unless you're tampering, and that doesn't happen in the NHL, it is a major risk because you might not get the player and you may lose your number one center as well in the process, because there'd be plenty of teams, Boston Bruins, I'm looking your direction, that would open things up for Jack Eichel.
Eichel wants to stay, by the way. So I mean,
I believe that. I believe
they're going to
that
figure
too.
it out.
But there have been situations where players have wanted to stay, but like there's just flat out more money available somewhere else.
But if there is even an inkling that Connor likes a dry heat and would mind playing next to Mitch, because Connor's going to want to go someplace. Connor's going to
go to Dallas. Like
Connor's going to want to.
You want dry heat? It's other places too.
Connor's going to want to go someplace where there's a Mitch, just like he's got a Leon now. He's going to want a Mitch or something.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Again, I'm not saying that that's what's holding it up.
Yeah.
But I am saying that when you have a situation like that in Edmonton, you kind of have to keep your powder dry a little bit. And I think if you committed the money that's going to keep Eichel there and easily the no trade clause that'll keep him there. Does he have one now? I forget if he has one now. I think he's got to have one now, right? Let's see here. Jack Eichel, no move clause. So he's got a full no move clause now. He'd have one on his next contract. So you got to be sure. Because you can't have them all three. I mean, Vegas could probably find a way. One hurts.
Says any team
before the playoffs, and all of a sudden you can afford all three. But you probably need to not have all three if you want to have a successful team.
Yeah. Okay. Bracket the contract conversation. We're going to pick it up here in about 10 minutes with Hart Levine from PuckPedia, who will sort of drill down on what this means for the entire marketplace. I do want to talk about your Trevor Zegras piece.
Please.
What? No, so first of all, I think we can all be on the same page. The moment that really put him on the map was the Sonny Milano play against the Buffalo Sabres. That was tremendous, to the point where and this would have been the 2022 NHL All-Star game, where the league really went and pretzeled themselves to try to get Trevor Zegras in this thing, even though I think it was Troy Terry was representing Anaheim, but like Zegras gave them the best highlight of the year that everybody played on a loop over and over and over again. He better be in the All-Star game, so he became a special guest in the skills competition.
Like invented an event for him.
So good. But I loved it. Like, oh yeah, you got to get him in.
That's exactly why I wanted to write about him, is this idea that at one point, by his third season in the league, the idea that this guy isn't amongst the biggest stars in the NHL, the idea that this guy isn't in the conversation for Team USA, that the idea that this guy isn't even an Anaheim Duck anymore is kind of staggering to think about. We all know what happened in the last 2 years in Anaheim with the injuries and all this other stuff. And so there, I wanted to talk to him about Anaheim. I wanted to talk to him about where he wants to go. And so the two things I want to share is, like, I rarely get knocked on my ass as an interviewer, but the last question I asked Trevor was, at the end of this season with the Flyers, what would you like people to say about you? And I'm thinking to myself, he did a good job. He shot the puck good.
Teammates loved him, worked hard, honest effort.
He comes back with, I want people to say that I'm not a guy who plays hockey, but that I'm a hockey player. I'm like, what? the philosophical answer from the 23
You know what
or
that
24
is?
year old?
Hang on. You know what that is? I always tell. Okay, can we just park this for 1 second? I always tell like youth hockey, minor hockey coaches the exact same thing that plays off of that. And I always say, like, this is a sort of like, let's let kids have fun. Like, remember that when you're let the kids have fun. I always say, like, the mistake that youth hockey coaches make is they think they're coaching hockey players. They're not. These aren't hockey players. These are kids playing hockey. And that's a major, major distinction. I always try to pound it into them. You are not coaching hockey players. These are kids who play hockey. Big difference. And you become a hockey player much later on in life, which is why you see that Trevor Zegras answer that you're referencing. And at that point, you want to be you're no longer a kid playing hot dog hockey. You're not that anymore.
You're absolutely right.
It's a
I think
great
that
answer.
It also speaks to the narrative that's been established about him, which is that he isn't anything more than YouTube trick shots, that he can't play a 200-foot game. Everybody I talked to, Lucas Dostal included, his goalie back in Anaheim, said, look, this kid works really hard on being a complete player. And so far, the Flyers, I think, like what they see, but he's going to have to prove it to stay in the middle. And that brings me to Anaheim. Like, I really wanted to talk about Anaheim with this kid. And the first thing he said was it was probably a seasonal disaffective disorder, being in the sunshine for 365. And I thought he was kind of joking, but a lot of people have kind of seized on that to say, actually, that's definitely a thing you wouldn't want to deal with if you were somebody that has it. The two things that struck me, first of all, the Anaheim thing, I think, boils down to the injuries, the fact that he missed his first camp with Greg Cronin because of the RFA contract negotiations. And I think Cronin, let's just say he got off on the wrong foot with Greg Cronin, which is not the foot you want to be on with Greg Cronin. And the third thing is the fact that they had Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish playing the position that Zegras wanted to play. So I mean,
he wasn't. Pause on that. He wasn't the general manager's guy.
He wasn't the general manager's guy, and he's also not. Yeah, he's not built for the wing. He's built for the middle. He wants to play the middle, and that was the problem. The thing that really struck me, though, Marek, was this is a guy who, again, in his first 3 seasons of play, would be one of the last players you'd expect to hit trade boards. You know, one of the last guys you expect to be on the block.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years put him there. And I talked to him about how much anxiety that created. Like, he kind of all these guys know more than we do. Like when I put him on a trade board, or Chris Johnston puts him on a trade board.
What took you so long?
We're doing it because we do it because we're looking at their contract situation, where the team is in the standings, and talking to some people inside the league to kind of formulate these trade boards. But to see his name on there means that all of a sudden his phone's getting blown up by friends. All of a sudden he goes on Instagram and he's seeing the same meme accounts that we see talking about, Trevor Zegras traded ? And he talked about how hard that was for him to deal with. It's something that he, in year 1, really messed him up. In year 2, it didn't get any easier. And it gave me a little bit new perspective on sometimes when these guys' names get out there, especially a guy who thinks he's going to stay in Anaheim. Really can mess them up a little bit.
But that's the things that players, again, like young players, need to prepare themselves for. And I guess there's no really preparing them for seeing their names on trade boards. But like, nobody makes it to the NHL and doesn't understand that that's part of the game. That they are now going to be talked about as commodities and potentially traded. They will be, forever married to their salary cap number. I'm surprised we haven't seen that, on a consistent basis on alternate feeds, where you have the number on the back of the jersey, and also there's an overlay of how much that player's making as they skate down the ice and turn. Oh, look at that! There's a $15 million turnover at the blue line. We're going the other way.
But don't you think that if you're that young, and if you've been kind of consecrated as being one of the foundational players of a rebuilding team, then you don't expect that? I think every player should expect that. Obviously, it's the nature of the beast. Rent, don't buy, all that stuff we always hear. But I think when you're Trevor Zegras and you're that young and you've become, he's on the cover of a video game wearing a Ducks jersey. Like he's part of the solution until he's not. And I think that was a real world rocking moment for the kid.
Yep, and listen, I think that I think he does really well. First of all, he's going to help that power play, for one. When they made that move, that was after they had fired John Tortorella and Rocky Thompson. Rocky was in charge of the power play, and I would imagine if you're John Tortorella and Rocky Thompson, you're saying, "Oh, now you go and get the shooter for the power play." Okay, great. Thanks. Where was that last year? But we were dying for that. We tried Michkov from the spot, and that didn't. Thanks for doing that now after you
listen, man.
After you punted us.
He's been spending time on a line with Michkov during the preseason, and like, there's fewer things that I want more in this league right now than to see those two kids and maybe somebody who can kind of keep the heat off them on the same line. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be. Anything, again, I always sort of temper what I see in the preseason, and just with the simple fact that it's preseason, it's not NHL games, and even stuff that I see in the first couple of weeks of the regular season, I say to myself, no one's really hit their stride yet. You're still going to get a lot of sloppy games, and there'll be some glorious games, maybe some bad games, and the coaches don't have the screws in the players yet. But you know who's really caught my eye every time I watch Carolina? Nikishin. I don't know how many Carolina Hurricanes games you've watched. I don't know what your viewing habits are for preseason.
Like ever? A lot.
Like this year. Trust me. I just do it out of habit. Like last night, I'm like, hey man, I watched Berkeley Catton score that goal, the 1-0 goal in the Seattle Calgary game, and I'm just like, I think Berkeley Catton can make this team. Holy smokes, Berkeley Catton looks like it's like his first goal in the Now, it was a beautiful shot, but I get carried away with myself, and I got to catch myself all the time and remind myself that, Marek, like, calm down. It's preseason, man.
What do you like about Nikishin?
I think that, first of all, he looks better than he does last year. He's physical. He's not shy. He's got a shot from the point, and in a system where, like, put it this way, that is a system that shines up defensemen, right? Like, you look at how Colorado was talking about Brent Burns. Oh, his underlying numbers are tremendous. That's what Carolina does to defensemen. Like, if you are, I know we talk a lot about what Sylvain Lefebvre has been able to do with defensemen with the Florida Panthers. Look at what the Carolina Hurricanes have been able to do for blue liners.
Two words, Brett Pesce.
There's a long list of defensemen that have been really shined up by the Carolina Hurricanes. And even though Brent Burns is the back nine of his career, more than the back nine, he can see the clubhouse. They're glowing about his underlying numbers right now. It's like that's what Carolina does. He's in a great spot to maximize his most positive qualities.
That's why the Keandre Miller situation was a huge win for Carolina. Like, the idea that could reach heights that he never reached in New York, or maybe would never reach in New York, with the Hurricanes is a pretty good bet. I want to say something.
I'll give you another one. I'll give you one more. Brady Shea.
Yeah, totally. And like Pesce made bank off playing in that system. A lot of bank. I will say that I haven't watched a lot of preseason hockey because I was watching the last gasps of a dying Mets season, and then wasted my time watching a terrible New York Jets team get buried even more by the worst officiated game I've ever seen, at least this season.
And you don't pick on officials, so that's rare for you to say that. You're not. Yeah,
my time has been spent in abject misery, and I probably would have benefited by watching more preseason hockey. But I will say this about Carolina: one thing that caught my eye is they still remain a team that needs to find a solution at number 2 center. And there was some talk earlier before camp that they might actually try Seth Jarvis there, but it seems like what they're trying is Logan Stankoven.
And Logan Stankoven. I can't see it. So I can't. You don't see
Stankoven at 2C?
I can't see it. No, I can't.
Why?
I cannot see it. He is a winger. Just to be blunt, he's too small, and right now he's not strong enough. I know you're a New Jersey. Listen, as someone who loves and has always adored the New Jersey Devils. You're looking at Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier saying, "Excuse me, what about the 19s? Go look at outside of Mahovlich. Go look at the 77 Habs and that dynasty team, and look at the under 6-footers that they have there. It's a different era, Greg Wyshynski.
Listen,
Logan Stankoven is not going to be the second line center for the Carolina Hurricanes. Unless they can get a second line center, it's going to be Jesperi Kotkaniemi. It will be.
I love a second line center. I love an undersized center. Granted, he can get you 60 points in 41 games. That's all he'll play. But no, I just find it interesting that they're trying to find an internal solution.
They are.
Because I think Kotkaniemi is kind of shown that he's probably not it. And So I give them credit for trying some solutions within their lineup. Ultimately, it's probably where they're going to have to go out and find somebody. Listen, I'll throw 2 names out there into the ether. That'd be a real Nazem Kadri spot for me, would be second line in Carolina. That would be real sweet. Even sweeter.
That's a good call.
Hey, Sid, it's me, Jordan. Just wanted to let you know about Carolina barbecue and how tasty it is. Remember me? Remember when I was on your team?
Remember that?
For that first one?
Rocking cups, and you called me Gronk.
And then they traded me, and everybody's like, what? Why? A Selkie? No, they never gave me the Selkie. They never ended up giving me the Selkie. I don't know why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's back on the contract talk here. Hart Levine is standing by. The conceptual, brilliant genius of PuckPedia, Hart Levine, joins us here on the sheet on a very special day where, I'm curious, like, Hart, when you see the biggest contract in the history of the NHL, that's where, like, Operation PuckPedia, that's when, like, PuckPedia HQ goes into overdrive. Like, describe what happened there. I guess, like, in your living room, wherever you have your computers. What happens when that hits the wire?
Yeah, you know those commercials where the Budweiser goal light goes off? That's what happens. Yeah. The sirens going off. Who scored? What happened? No, just a new contract. No, I mean it's exciting. A lot of times the contracts after mid-July, they're not that interesting, right? So it's good to have something that gets people talking and interest, and you wonder what that means for the upcoming guys, and hopefully we see some domino, because it's been pretty quiet since like early August through now, really.
What did you make of the contract and the percentage of the cap that it'll eat up next season?
It's a big number, but we have to just get used to us living in a world where the cap is going up so much each year. So it's going up 9% between this year and next year. So we have to think about things like in cap dollars in specific years. So it seems like going from Leon Draisaitl's top cap hit of 14 to hit Kaprizov's number of 17 is big. But if you take 17 for next year and bring it into like today's dollars, that's only 15.6. So, I mean, it is an increase over 14, but it's not as dramatic. If you think about like Leon's 14, what would that be worth in next year's cap dollars? That's 15.25, right? So it's a big number. It's a big jump in the percentage of the cap. And I think it's going to make a big difference to these other big UFAs that are out there, because we see comps, even if they're not direct comps are like a magnetic pull, right? And it pulls guys up, or if it's what we would call a bad comp, depending on what side you're on, it pulls the new one down to that. So it's definitely, I think Eichel's happy, Kyle Connor's happy. I think Connor McDavid, it doesn't matter what anyone else signs for, he's going to do his own thing, but it's going to have an impact on all those other deals, and it'll be fun to see the dominoes.
So once upon a time, the saying was, you can't win the Stanley Cup with it. No one's won a Stanley Cup with a $10 million player. Now everybody makes $10 million. So what is, from your experience here, right? And as everyone makes 10 for you, Tim, it's the new Oprah. What is the new 10 million? Like, you can't win a Stanley Cup if a player makes 15 million, 16 million. Is there a new comp for that cliche?
I mean, I always thought that cliche was a little lame, because it's not about those players, it's about what you do with the rest of your roster, right? Because whether a guy who makes 10 million, 15 million, we're going to have 85, 90 million of other dollars that need to get spent, and it's about how many other bad contracts do you have, or really efficient contracts. So I think it depends. You could have a player, you could have a successful winning team if you had a $20 million cap hit, as long as you didn't have too many other ones that high and all your other ones are really efficient. I think what we're seeing is you can have contracts that are sort of in that mid-range, which used to be sort of in the 5 to 7, which I think is kind of moving up to like 7 to 10. You can't have too many in that range, which are duds, which are just like, the player is not living up to it at all. You can survive if you have a guy overpaid by, a couple million, but having, $5 to $7 to $9 million guys when they're playing like $2 or $3 million, that's what's going to kill a team, not necessarily the top end. Now, if you have like, the the core four with Toronto, where you have a lot of guys that are potentially in that high range and maybe overpaid at the time by a couple million, times 3 or 4, that starts to add up. But I think any team could win with a player close to the max, depending on what they do with the rest of the roster.
I think the answer is you can't win with a goalie that makes 11 million. You can win one with 10. In fact, you can win 2 of them if you have a guy that makes 10. But 11 is too much. That's the new bar, I think.
Right. Yes.
This is yet another guy, Hart, that is re-signing with his team. I was mentioning to Marek before that after the summer of retention, we have yet another guy that is not going to market nor forcing his way out of a market via trade. Really, the only big name I think that moved was probably Marner, and we know that why that happened. Do you think this is just the new normal in the NHL with the way the cap has gone up, where whether it's Eichel or McDavid or Kyle Connor or now Kaprizov, they're all just going to stay where they are?
I think like this class, just those specific names, it sounds like those players are most likely to stay. But I don't think that's the trend going forward for a few reasons. One, now with the term limits going from 7 to 6 years and 8 to 7 to retain your player, in terms of total dollars, like I think when players do the math of like, if I don't sign, I go to market, maybe I can get another deal out of it. I think that has an impact. And we're seeing shorter deals. And that's not going to impact the free agent market like this year or next year. But if we kind of project a few years out, look at a guy like Mason McTavish. That used to be an automatic 8-year deal, right? Now it's a 6-year deal. We're seeing a lot of deals where it's 6 years for these guys instead of 7 or 8, and even shorter, more bridge deals. I think that's going to mean, a few years from now, we're going to have such a glut of players hitting the open market that it's going to make it interesting, and there'll be more musical chairs like we see, in the NFL, for example. Players are just moving around so much every offseason because there's so many free agents. The deals are so much shorter. I think eventually we'll get that way in the NHL. It's just going to take some time. And we still, you still have that thing in the NHL where players are loyal, and it feels in some respects potentially like a betrayal if the team wants them and the player, thinking about leaving. So they have to overcome that. But like I said, when we get like, let's say 3, 4, 5 years from now, and we have more good players hitting the market, it's just going to leave more teams with more money available. And then we'll see, I think, the chair shuffling around like we've seen in other sports.
So I think what you meant, Hart, is that their stuff is there. That's my mantra. It's been my mantra for 20 years.
Moving is really bad.
Their stuff
is really bad.
There.
The good thing the teams have people to do that for you. It's not like the three of us are pulling up stakes like, Hart's moving from Edmonton to Los Angeles here. Like it's a little bit different when players go from market to market. Let me we are sort of flirted with the cascading talk early in this conversation. Let me see if I can drill down with you a couple of seconds here, Hart. As far as who does this contract affect most? Like the cascade here is going to go initially to whom? Is it Kyle Connor? Is it Martin Richest? Is it you sort of like look to Connor McDavid on a sort of and put him in a separate file? Is it Jack Eichel? Like the cascade here hits who first on the beach?
I think the most obvious one is Kyle Connor, another winger. And then I think Jack Eichel just in the non-Connor McDavid division of rating guys that need to sign, he's going to probably be the next highest paid guy that are like the next contract that will be the highest. So I think those two, and like I said, it's a magnet. So, Jack Eichel, I don't think he was going to say he should be the same as Kaprizov or even the same as Drysdale, but Drysdale's 14 million, like I said, is over 15 next year. And I think the argument is going to be, okay, I'm not the same as those guys, but I'm not X amount less, right? I'm not, 5 million less or 4 million less. And it just pulls guys towards that. So yeah, I think those two are obvious ones, in Kyle Connor and Eichel. I think the other interesting thing is contract structure. Like we saw, for example, when Stolarz just signed with Toronto, the cap hit maybe seemed a little light, but then when you look at the contract structure, he got lots of trade clauses and he got basically all the money paid in bonuses. That does have an impact for guys. And so even like Kaprizov, you look at it, because he's only getting $1 million of base salary, I would bet you right on the show right now, he's going to actually make more than what his contract was announced today, because when the league minimum salary goes up, everyone has to make the new minimum wage. And so after this CBA that was just signed, the next one, I'm sure the minimum will be over $1 million because that's where this one ends. And so he's going to actually get a little tick up on his contract, just like a Shesterkin he's going to get a raise next year because he's only supposed to make below the new minimum of $850 next year. So that's another, like, it's not a lot of money when you're making hundreds of millions. Like, what's a few, $100,000 between friends? But that's
money.
Another thing just with contract structure. It's like a little tip he's going to get, when the next CBA comes, a little increase. And so structure definitely impacts it. You look at like Anaheim, they don't mess with structure. That was a flat $7 million each year, right? And with a little bit of clause, nothing, not like a full no trade or anything. So that's the other thing. Teams that are willing to give whatever structure you want, that can impact the clause. We've seen like, St. Louis in the past, that's bit them where they didn't want to give structure. Where Vegas, I think they'd give Eichel whatever he wants to get the cap hit as low as possible.
So two things. So first off, Anaheim maybe played a little bit with structure on the deferred payment deal that they did, previous. But the thing I find fascinating is like I never realized that if your base salary is $1 million and you get $12 million in bonus money, that base salary could actually increase if the NHL minimum wage, say, jumps by $500,000.
It will, yeah. That happened like in the last
crazy.
CBA. Austin Matthews actually got a raise. I think Mitch Marner as well. You have to, they don't count signing bonus as part of like towards the minimum. And hey, everyone's got to make minimum wage. So yeah, even these guys making big money. I know like Shesterkin's one. I think Sean Walker's another one next year that will get small bumps, and their cap hit as a result will get adjusted up.
I was going to say that, but so it does impact your cap hit though. If you, it's not like, hey, we didn't know they were going to raise the minimum wage. Like,
oh no, hang on. Let me jump in here. The one thing, and Hart will echo this one. The one thing that owners, like we keep hearing about, the hill that they will die on: no outside money. No outside money in the system. This all gets accounted for on the cap.
Yeah,
exactly.
Unless,
yeah.
of course,
so basically, it's like you
signed...
take the contract and you're revising it a little, so you got to recalculate what the total comp divided by the years, and so it changes the cap hit. Not a lot, because if Kaprizov's at $1 million, let's say by the end the minimum is going to be like 1.3. It's not a huge increase, but it will definitely adjust the cap hit. And you see some guys like Austin Matthews, the deal he finished previous, he had a funny cap hit number because he got like a bunch of $25,000 and $50,000 raises in the later years.
And Hart, were you surprised they didn't just go $125 million and then have Kaprizov take a job with a tree planting company somewhere in California?
Yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. Maybe in Minnesota, it's like does something with lakes, or
they already have so many trees. They don't need more trees.
Yes,
There's no
exactly.
aspiration in Minnesota.
Hart, I've been telling Greg, like, honestly, like.
It.
The Kaprizov or McDavid or Eichel or Kyle Connor meme coin. I'm telling you, like, that's the way around it. Just start a meme coin and and get your owner to dump in $10 million. That's how you get around things
it's
now.
Funny, but it does raise the question, like the famous Stamkos meeting in Toronto where the Canadian Tire CEO is there talking about endorsement deals. Like, obviously, allegedly with Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers put money into that business, but like they kind of did it clumsily, right? And also, if Kawhi Leonard's company didn't have like the name in it, it would have been so obvious that he was a recipient. Like there could be some real gray area here, right? Like, what's to stop a good friend of Craig Leipold, making Kaprizov a big endorsement deal to sell, Ford cars at the local dealership, and who knows, maybe 20 years later, he gets his money back. But like, we're entering a gray zone, and we'll have to see what happens in the NBA and how hard they come down on it, or if they say, hey, this is like, it looks fishy, but we can't prove it. It is interesting for like the future of the salary cap, and what does that mean?
It was one of those deals where it was so sloppy that you're just like, they weren't trying to really do this, were they? Because it's just so obvious.
Well, that's Mark Cuban's argument. Mark Cuban's whole
that
argument
is Mark Cuban's argument. Yeah,
come on.
Hart, you and I are probably the same level of junkie to this whole Kawhi thing. I've consumed every piece of media and everything about it. I'm just utterly fascinated, not only by how Pablo Torre has been like doling out the information, but just by pushback from Cuban, what the Clippers said yesterday. It's really, I mean, it must be like crack for you. I mean, as far as being a guy running.
And I'm ready to subscribe. I'm ready to subscribe to the Wish Finds Out podcast where you uncover things in NHL.
That's right.
You let me know when you're
the
ready.
Wish Finds Out podcast is just like what happened to the Buff-a-Slug logo. It's not like anything that's going to win the Pulitzer, So
hey, you never know.
What happened? What happened with the mandatory 2-minute penalty for the jersey tuck? Get to the bottom of that. It's still in the rules, but when have we ever heard that one called?
Is that collusion? Why aren't we measuring sticks anymore?
Yeah,
we're not. They're fine. You can use whatever you want, except for length, right? Except for length, which I've always wondered, like if who's the smallest? Like let's say.
Apparently Logan Stankoven.
Let's say Logan Stankoven loses his stick and goes by the bench, and whoever the tallest player, like if it's like Chara was playing on the Carolina Hurricanes and handed Logan Stankoven his stick. Now Chara has an exemption; he was allowed to use a longer stick than allowed. If Logan Stankoven used Zdeno Chara's stick, would it be a penalty?
Sure,
no,
because
because
he doesn't have the exemption.
It's not a penalty because there is this is hilarious exemption to things in the NHL where if something is funny enough, then you don't get a penalty for it. So I think that would probably fall under it. Hart, I want to ask you real quick. I know we're almost running out of time here.
We are, yeah.
What surprised you in the new CBA with the contracts? Like, is there anything that really you were like, I can't believe either the players or the owners signed off on this?
Yeah, why are we getting rid of double retentions? That's in the bucket of who wanted this, other than maybe a couple guys at league office. But teams sure didn't want that. The players, I don't think they knew really what impact that would be.
Can I jump in? I think there was at least one team that did, because I think that there was at least one team who sort of wanted to force smaller market teams, like if they're going to spend money, that they were going to spend money to make their teams more competitive. It's actually the idea being that if smaller market teams improve in the standings and have success, that their franchise value will grow. And if that's true, and it is, then other larger market teams' franchises value will grow. And it's a way just to make sure that small market teams don't just bank all this dead cap space. And it's an incentive to get those teams to spend money on players. That's the way it was described to me.
My rebuttal would
sorry, go ahead.
My rebuttal would be, another way to grow league revenue is have lots of interest in trades and trade activity and speculation, and then actually having trades happen.
I don't disagree. Again, just the messenger here. That was the reason that I was told. I
kind of remember there being somebody at the league, and I don't want to say who it was. I'm not quite sure I'm right on this, but I remember somebody saying that the league wanted to also uncomplicate trades, like some of the machinations that we're having with these trades, with the retention and everything else, was kind of like complicating the trade deadline, and they didn't like it being that complicated. But I don't want to say that for sure. But I remember hearing something at the time about that.
Those were complicated because they're actually 3 different trades, and it would take a long time to make them. My one little quick rant, though, that I know teams are complaining about is with the playoff cap. So you get a cap charge for players that were buried in the minors during the year, right? But if that player plays for you in the playoffs, you have to take his full cap hit. So let's say Utah has Connor Ingram in the minors all year. They're going to have an $800,000 playoff cap charge for him. And then if they dress him in the playoff game, he still has his $1.95 million towards the playoff cap. So you're actually paying extra in the playoff cap if you have a guy in the minors during the year. That doesn't seem right.
See?
Do you
Hart's the best.
Do you believe the James Myrtle theory that teams will dress like Joe the plumber as a backup goalie in order to free up cap room in the playoffs? That was Myrtle's new theory, is that teams will just dress whoever making league minimum as their backup goalie in a playoff game.
Can you dress a cow? Can you dress a cow as a backup goaltender? Right. Can we dress livestock?
Teams have been talking about that.
With the cotton candy. Get your ass out of here. You're backing up Bobrovsky tonight.
But in the playoffs, if your backup if a goalie gets hurt, your third goalie can come down and get dressed and get on the bench and play if there's another injury, right? So it's not to say that your real backup who's up in the press box can't still get in that game if you have some injuries. So yeah, that's a very viable solution. I think that's going to happen.
This is actually what I mean. Like, I'm surprised if the Florida Panthers hadn't already thought about this. To be honest with you,
no, I think they haven't. Hart, we got a boogie. Thanks as always for stopping by. I know this is a catnip day for you. This is big around PuckPedia. Enjoy it, and there are more coming. Thanks for always being on the watch.
Thanks so much.
There is the great Hart Levine from PuckPedia.
Being on the watch.
You know what? I whenever I talk to Hart, And he's a brilliant person when it comes
Have
to
a heart to
salary
heart,
cap.
I think they
Have a
call
heart
it,
to
yeah.
heart. I have a heart to heart.
Yeah.
I always think about Matthew Weist, the late Matthew Weist,
know.
and Cap Geek, and how that site, that idea, which just started out as a pet project. Matthew Weist was a reporter in Halifax, covering the Halifax Mooseheads, his favorite team with the Detroit Red Wings, and he wanted to figure out how they use their salary cap, and he put together the very primitive website just documenting what the Detroit Red Wings were doing with their money and how they were allocating it, and it turned into Cap Geek, which spawned so many different salary cap sites. I always think back, and I used to talk to Matthew all the time, and as did you, just like such a wonderful guy. And he has made, just cynically, Matthew Weist made a lot of people rich. Gave a lot of people careers, like, because the whole foundation was all based on what Matthew Weist did. Just as an independent and a guy that was curious online, built an entire industry.
I don't think I have a more fundamental disagreement with Gary Bettman in the NHL. Outside of socio-political disagreements, than the idea that they shouldn't have a salary cap site on NHL.com. Like, Bettman has steadfastly said through the years, he doesn't believe there's enough interest for it, that it doesn't, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, whatever.
My
retort is not. My retort is not.
You know my theory now.
Your theory is
setting up easy wins for the next commissioner.
I mean, that's great. If that's the case, if Bill Daly wants to have an NHL salary cap site, that would be a slam dunk.
That's my
That'd
theory.
Be a Michael Jordan from the foul line windmill. I'm just saying that, like, the logic of that argument always completely fell flat. Put aside the traffic that PuckPedia gets and Cap Geek got and places like that. Like, put that aside for a second. The entire basis for every transaction in your league is whether or not the money works under the salary cap that you guys established. Like, if the entire idea, if you've got all this information on your site about how fast a guy skates per 60, but you don't tell us whether or not his team could make a trade, like, what are we even doing? So that's my biggest fundamental argument with the NHL. Like, the idea that they don't have that stuff publicly available to every fan to check out, because it is the thing that allows your team to either do business or not do business. It's the entire basis of the trade deadline. Like, that is insane to me that they don't make that information public on their own site.
I don't disagree. And that's why I think that is going to be an easy win for whether it's, part of whether Gary Bettman wants to make that part of his sort of legacy position before he pieces out, or he's just setting that up for the next commissioner. I don't know, but it's to me, it's a tap in. Like that one is I am so on point with you on that. Is a complete layup for the NHL. You
name it Daily Cap, DALY. You brand it to Bill.com, and then it just redirects to NHL.com. Perfect. Done.
Done. Simple. And that's it. Closing thought for you before we bid you good afternoon. This has been a long one, and we talked a lot about numbers and contracts and had some laughs along the way.
Trying to think if there's anything that happened since we last saw each other.
Look at this.
Oh, there's Austin Matthews playing with a goalie stick. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, all good. Totally fine.
I'm happy JT Miller didn't have a Barkov thing.
Yes. Speaking of JT Miller, I got to find this. Did you see I mentioned this on the program yesterday, the Dan Rosen piece on JT Miller and the quotes at NHL.com?
Oh, no. I saw that he wrote about JT Miller's time in Vancouver, but I didn't see the quotes.
This is the money one. Go ahead.
Give me what's the money
quote. Here's the money quote from JT Miller, Dan Rosen, great piece at NHL.com. This is talking about, how things happened in Vancouver. And he said, quote, "I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but the emotion I play with, it's in me. So it's managing that, keeping it to 5 to 10% of the time that it's bad," Miller said. "We all know that," here it is, "we all know that guys who play with emotion, you're not going to be 100% good. It's easy for guys who don't have a heartbeat to say, 'Hey, calm down.' That's kind of empty to me, but I just think it's about keeping it to 5 to 10% of the time. It's easy for guys who don't have a heartbeat to say, 'Hey, calm down.'" Now, I'm just a simple country lawyer, Greg Wyshynski. I don't know who my client is talking about here.
Let me translate that quote to you. For you. You're damn right I ordered the code red.
Great piece by Dan. Like it's by Dan Rosen here. Yeah, go and check it out. It's a really bluntly, it's a really good piece and some interesting quotes.
Real
from
quick,
TT on that one.
the Barkov thing is super sad to see him get injured.
Sucks.
I got to imagine they're not going to fill those. They're going to keep their keep their hopes alive that he comes back for the playoffs.
I think
right?
so too. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's but the problem becomes then we've seen players come back from this before, and just because you're healthy enough to play, and I know that like 70% of if you have Alexander Barkov at 70%, he's better than like 90% of the NHL. But what are you getting in Alexander Barkov if like the moment he's cleared, you jump into playoff hockey? I know what you mean. Like, and I'm with you. Yeah. I think like you have a chance, you have a shot at keeping Alexander Barkov in line, but you do it, and you don't take the salary cap kiss off for the whole year. But again, even that's a risk too.
I think you're fine because like I think he can come back. He can focus on defense as your third line center, and Evgeny Malkin has got all the reps at 1C. You fit him in, and then you're golden. All
right, keep banging on that drum. We'll see where that one heads. All right, you go wallow in your Mets misery, yes sir. Jesus. And we'll sorry, it's the last time I'm going to bring it up. What are you going to do?
Pete Alonso opted out. Like the shit wasn't even dry in the bed yet, and Pete Alonso opted out for free agency. It was just a really bad 48 hours. Like the people I feel the worst for, Marek, are what I imagine were thousands of New Yorkers who went to Miami to see the last Mets game against the Marlins on Sunday, and then stayed in Miami to watch an absolutely terrible Jets team the next day against the Dolphins. Yeah. Those people. There ain't enough little liquor bottles in that plane on the way back to New York to soothe that pain. Let me tell you what.
To round off the corners. What did you say, Zach?
And the Jets. I was just rubbing it in a little
Thanks.
bit more.
Yeah. That's right. The Mets and the Jets. Listen, when the shining light of positivity in my life is University of Maryland football, you can pretty much tell where the Mets and Jets are right now.
All right. Be off with you. Enjoy it, and we'll talk on Thursday.
Bye.
There he is. Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. We had a lot in that one. And thanks to Hart Levine for stopping by from PuckPedia as well. Boy, we chewed on a lot and chewed up your time too. So let's wrap things up the way we normally do on these parts, shall we? The sheet is powered by FanDuel. Home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Do we have something about contract signings, Zach? Do we have anything about McDavid and Kyle Connor and who's going to sign next and where players are going to go? Do we have anything like that today from our friends at FD?
No, no, we don't. Unfortunately, that would have been pretty good though. Who signs next? Who's the next deal? What's the highest deal? Those would have been good ones.
Why not?
Maybe we could see if we can get them to do something like that for for an upcoming show that we've got. We'll leave it there, but. No, I just kept it in the theme of who signed and what they could possibly do this year. So we kept it with the Kirill Kaprizov contract topic of the day and what he will do this season. So for Kirill Kaprizov, his goal line on FanDuel this year is set at 42.5. Over on either side is even, -110. On either side. Jeff, I just didn't know if you had an opinion on Kirill Kaprizov, the season he could have this year, where he might be at.
I always want, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just like a sign of aging. Although most people, like, as they age, they get more cynical. But I cheer for people to do well. Like, I want them to get 50. I want that fan base to have something to significantly cheer for. So I'm going to say 50 goals. And he stays healthy, plays 82 games. I know that doesn't happen. I know, like, I get it. We all know Kirill Kaprizov. When he's in the lineup, like, he's monster, and we're talking about the Hart Trophy, and then he's out for 20 or 25 games. I'm going to cross my fingers for Kaprizov, say he plays pretty much the entire season, scores 50 goals. Because that's what I want to happen. That's what I want to happen. That's just, I'm trying to be more positive in life. and not just be cynical like, yeah, get the hospital bracelet off and then we'll talk. Nah.
Yeah, I'm going with that as well. I also think that there's an element of like the pressure's off of you've signed your contract. We don't have to discuss this anymore. You're just a member of the team for the next, 8+ years, right? Because he's got this one.
Yeah,
under
because
the
there's
belt
no
or
there's
in
no
the
stress
holster
in
as
having
well.
the largest contract in the history of the NHL.
Okay,
No
I
pressure
get
there
that.
whatsoever.
But I mean, I feel like these other at least one more is going to come, and I think it's going to happen before the end of the season. I think Eichel is going to sign before he gets to next summer, and I feel like once that happens, it's like, okay, well, it's a little more breathing room. Like, that guy signed, so stop looking at me. But I also just kind of feel like there's going to be that motivation from him, and he kind of seems like the player who would thrive off of that, where it's not so much like the pressure, but it's like, I'm worth this. Watch why.
Yeah. You know what's going to be, just as a quick aside here, you know what's going to be really interesting to listen to now that Kaprizov has signed? All of our Oilers programming. All of our Oilers programming is going to be mint right now. Anyhow. All right, one thing I want to remind you of as well, the Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool is officially live, and if you think you've got hockey knowledge to go to the distance, then this one is for you. It's a game of elimination strategy and a $2,500 grand prize for the last fan standing. Here's how it works. You start with 2 lines. Each round, you pick one winner from the slate of NHL games, but here's the twist. You can only use each team twice throughout the entire contest. Get a pick wrong, that's one life gone. Lose twice, you're out. The pool runs until there's one person left standing, and that winner takes home $2,500. So, are you ready to outlast the rest? Sign up now at dailyfaceoff.com or hit the link in the show notes, and may the best fan survive. And a quick note as well, I want to play the video tomorrow. DFO Live returns on October 1st with Tyler Yaremchuk and brand new co-host, the great Carter Hutton. Monday to Friday at noon Eastern, DFO Live returning on October the 1st with Tyler Yaremchuk and Carter Hutton. Do not miss that. That should be an outstanding show. Yes, sir.
Also, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, Morning Cup of Hockey returns.
Oh, is that tomorrow? The boys are back? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yes. I guess so. Yeah, look at that. Yes. All right. The impact players. Johnny Lazarus, Colby Cohen, just in time for Gavin McKenna.
They finally
Penn
decided
State
to return and start
to go and play with. I think Penn State playing ASU this weekend. I think so. Just in time for that, just for the Gavin McKenna tour. So look forward to that. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Morning Cup of Hockey. All right, there we go. Thanks to Hart Levine for stopping by from PuckPedia. Can we announce that guest that we're having tomorrow alongside with Brian Burke for our weekly chat with Berkey? Zach, do we have that?
Hold on to it for now.
Hold on to it. Okay, we have.
I'm still working through something.
Stay tuned to the socials. Our man here, Zach, is currently navigating some waters to try to get someone on the program tomorrow. Stay tuned to our socials and you'll find out who that is. In the meantime, tip the Zamboni driver as always. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we're back with the sheet tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. Enjoy the rest of Kaprizov Day.